And we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sling'N podcast. I'm not TJ. Why am I reading TJ's script? It's Kent. Hi. He left me. He doesn't want to be here. He said, fuck these guys. I'm not interested.
That's fair.
That's actually not what he said at all. What he said was, I gotta take my kid to a hunter safety class and be a good dad.
Fair enough.
Question him on why a hunter safety class would be this late at night, but it really is because he's texting me from there as we speak.
And being extra safe, I guess, in the dark.
Right, super safety. Sling'N podcast, Kent Howard from Green Mountain Defense coming at you tonight with Ari and Santi from
COSAINT
Arms. Santé?
Santé, it's fancy. It's like Dante with an S.
Kind of like latte?
Yes, which I love. They're delicious.
Hey. So, who wants to go first? Introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Ari.
You volunteer,
Ari. I'm Ari, and I'm the programmer and machinist at COSAINT ARMS.
Very cool. Long walks on the beach, moonlit dinners. What are you into?
Anything, everything. Little backpacking, motorcycle riding, concerts, shooting competitions, that sort of thing.
I like it. We will talk about many of those things. And how about you, Sante? Besides being a Shawn Michaels impersonator,
I do that only on the weekend, so I'd like you to know you're cutting into that time. But I'm glad to be here. I do gunsmithing, cerakoting, armoring, and just kind of all the run-of-the-mill. I do what Greg needs down at COSAINT, so I kind of just fit the bill. As far as my dating profile is concerned, martial arts, big into martial arts, like to shoot, obviously, hiking, camping, that sort of thing. Love my dogs, go for runs. Also into anime and manga because I'm a big nerd, video games, so balances me out pretty well.
What kind of dogs?
One's a German Shepherd. The other one's a mutt. He's built like a lab, but he looks like a Rottie. He's got like Rottie markings, but I call him Sausage because he's just a little chonker.
I like that. I know nothing about anime, so I had to hit on something.
That's okay.
I don't know shit about anime. But so, guys, it's really cool to get to do this because we had Greg on, and a lot of these podcasts you'll see the owner of the company from XYZ gun company, and they'll come on and they'll talk about the guns. And it'll be a big marketing promo shenanigan piece. But you never actually get to hear from the people who make the guns and do the things and work on them and program them and all that. So the viewers, if they paid attention to the last go around, and listeners already know that I came down to your shop and got to spend some hip pocket time with you guys who did a little bring your gun trainer to work day vibe where you put hard hats on me and made me stand in the corner and didn't let me touch anything. It's not true. It's not true at all.
There was a lot more crying involved, but
there was crying.
There was crying.
There was definitely crying. But I thought it would be interesting to get to bring, and we're going to do this with Blake and Clayton too. Bring the dudes who actually work the shop floor and talk about what it's like to make guns for a living, for one thing, and also kind of talk about what goes into the guns that are made. So, in order to do that, it's kind of important to get to know you guys in terms of what got you into shooting and what your relevance is in the gun industry, and then what other life experience and professional experience sort of led you into working at a place like COSAINT. Besides the fact that you were just sleeping on the street one day and Greg rolled by and offered you a job, which I know is not the story for either of you, but
it's closer than you think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not too far from the truth.
Right. Sante, you were telling me a little bit about your background down at the shop in terms of some security work you did and some other stuff you were into in the gun industry. So can you elaborate on that a little bit? What got you into guns?
It's pretty long, but I'll give you the plot points. I had a good friend who lived with me for a bit, and he shot. Super scared of guns when you see guns in Hollywood and stuff, and you think they're gonna jump off the table and get you. So I was pretty nervous around him at first. So we ended up shooting. I'm like, all right, this is fun. Went down, bought a gun, And then we found a local place that was really well rated. And it was pretty cool because we go there, the address, and we're in like a cul-de-sac. And I'm like, I could call, and I'm like, is this the place? And the guy's like, oh yeah, yeah, come on in. And I go up to somebody's front door or side door, and I knock, and like a 10-year-old kid answers the door. I'm like, I'm looking for Phil Shabbat, and he's like, oh yeah, come on in the place. And you know the scene from Boondock Saints when they're like go into the gun room and there's just guns everywhere. We walk into this guy's basement, and it's just walls of awesome stuff. And I fell in love quickly after that, and I ended up actually kind of it was kind of a lucky accident, but I hung out enough with him and his son, and we went shooting and stuff that ended up helping him run the shop, and I was there for quite a few years. Then that translated into working at a power plant where we had customers that we would sell guns to, and they got me a job there. So I was running security, doing that type of stuff. The training was really good, which I liked, but it was a lot of like hurry up and wait. So the job got pretty stale after a while. Moved down here, and I literally found Greg by looking at a newspaper that was sitting open in an ice cream shop. And him and Kim, his wife, had an ad, and on one side it was like a spread of everything COSAINT Arms. And being in the gun industry, I'm like, oh, I haven't heard of these guys. They got to be local since it's a local newspaper. I'm like, I'll give them a jingle. Sent Greg an email, and I mean, the rest is history. He's like, oh, I was actually just talking to Blake about that. Good timing. Why don't you come down Monday if you can? So talked to him, met the wife, and it took a few months. But after sending him enough emails, enough calls, and bugging him, he finally let me work for him.
I like the Boondock Saints reference. I'm called to the what do you need the stupid fucking rope?
Yeah, no, there was literally rope on the wall. So yeah, it was iconic. It lives rent free in my memory. It's good times though.
That's one of my like top 5 relationship films with the wife.
Yeah.
The Boondock Saints is one of those.
Absolutely.
like if she's feeling it, she's like, hey, you want to put on Boondock Saints?
It's funny. I was just thinking about revisiting that movie sometime soon, so I'm putting that on the list.
Yeah, you should for sure. What about you, Krieger?
That's a good one. So I come from a machining background. Got into it straight out of high school. Had an apprenticeship with GE Aviation, so they had me cutting metal, making parts for jet airplanes at the ripe age of 16. And worked there for a couple of years, and then moved to a company where I was working in automotive. Got into the programming side of things, making steering pinions and transmission gears and whatnot. And after being there for a while, kind of just decided it was time to move on, get into something that I felt a little bit more passionate about. And right about then, a friend of mine had interviewed at COSAINT and gave me a call. Like, didn't even know I was looking for a job, but gave me a call and was like, hey man, there's this job that it's pretty good, but I'm just not really a gun guy, and I know you are. So check it out. And gave Greg a call, had a phone interview that went pretty well. And he was like, man, when can you come by the shop? We can do it in person. And I had no idea where COSAINT was. I just knew it was local. And he hit me with the address, and I live 4 blocks away. So I was like, yeah, I could be there in like 5 minutes, man. And kind of the rest is history. It really did just fall into place.
You guys will notice that Ari answered to Krieger almost immediately. Because 100%, that's
I know my role in the world.
No, what's funny too is Ari and I started right around the same time, so it's kind of serendipitous we're here together too. It's been a couple of years now. It goes by fast.
It really does.
Something that was obvious to me was y'all actually do seem to have a vibe. Like the whole crew seems to enjoy each other. Like, I don't know if y'all are like, fuck that Clayton guy or what, but like that. Yeah. It seems like you guys are actually like friendly and you're enjoying your time in there, and yeah,
it certainly helps time go by too. But everyone's pretty open, and it's such a lax job overall, which helps it a lot. I feel pretty open talking to everybody. So
yeah, it's a great crew, and like just having good coworkers makes a job so much better. Like already I'm doing something that I'm kind of passionate about and in an industry that I think is just so much fun. And yeah, just having a good group of guys around makes all the difference.
I felt for sure, like, I'll be real with you, right? Like, hotel room night before, going to the shop, hanging out down there, only knowing Greg and Nat only digitally and phone and, you know, whatever like that. TJ knows him in person, but I did not. I was coming in being like, what is, like, are there going to be like Oompa Loompas pulling levers on machines that like don't want to talk, or what? Like, what's this going to look like? And I rolled in and I'm like looking around for NDAs to sign and, you know, safety glasses to be handed and everything else. And instead, Ari's like shotgunning beers with a guitar, just like 10:30 in the morning, just, you know, running a machine. You know, you don't want to talk about that. You don't want to be honest.
I mean, that may be a bit of an exaggeration. More of a Red Bull man, but yeah, no, it's a good time, and it's a very, you know, with paying mind to gun safety and everything that we have to. It is a fairly casual environment, and it's very nice. You know, Greg works with us a lot on making sure that we get the hours that we need, and everybody just kind of gets everything that needs to be done. Without it being, you know, super corporate and strict on everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, coming from like
my previous experiences at like
oh,
larger manufacturers or something like that. You know what I mean? Where I like to do the sort of shit like, hey, we'll give you a shop tour, and you show up and you're like at the Hershey factory, walking around the catwalk above the place or whatever. No, dude, I was right next to y'all, looking at the same machines, touching the same. It was really, really, really nice to see that.
I was gonna say, Greg makes it nice and easy too. It's such a laid back job, and coming from working in a nuclear power plant where everything's like safety on safety on safety, and like we're getting glasses and hard hats and ear pro and like all the time. It's, you know, it's so nice to come here, be able to like throw in an earbud and like get to work and do what I need to do to get done, and he doesn't get in the way. And, you know, he'll come over and be like, oh, I need you guys to take care of this because we need this done for whoever. And it's, I mean, it's nice. It's nice. Kind of just do your own thing.
It's a really cool vibe. I like it a lot. Let's talk a little bit about like capabilities, right? So Greg talked about what you guys are able to do there, but didn't get into detail really. So what, given that shop environment, like everything, all the machines you have in there, what are you guys capable of? What can you build? Somebody say.
So to an extent, you know, the imagination is kind of the limit. We do tend to stick to that double stack 1911 platform, though we've messed around with, you know, some Glock stuff, mostly personal pistols and whatnot. But yeah, we're full custom. So anything that you can kind of dream up, we'll do our best to make it happen. And there have been some creative requests that you know, it takes a little bit of programming and a little bit of I'm sure work on y'all's end with the Cerakote as well, but we've done some things that I had never even considered.
A wise machinist once told me, I'll put holes in anything.
Yep. A lot of the requests that we get are for aftermarket porting options, and so yeah, we'll put holes in anything.
Coming for me, I working in the gun shop. I used to do gunsmithing with a hammer, a punch, and a file, and that was the extent of my tools. So actually having like true machining, like I you know, it's, as long as we do some planning beforehand, I feel pretty confident we can just make about anything happen. It's fun because it is kind of like working in Wonka's candy factories. Like you dream something up, like, oh, can we do that? Can we get away with that? Let's figure it out.
It definitely had that vibe. When I went over to Ari's station and was hanging out by the freaking machine and the computer and all that, he was basically like a tattoo artist in that moment, where somebody had sent him a picture from the internet, and my man was like, whoever this guy was like, I want it to look like that. And Ari's like, all right, I'll make it look like that. And
yeah, we get a lot of those requests where somebody's wanting to get fairly close to something they've seen on the internet, or, you know, we get sketches on napkins where I kind of got to figure out which way is up before I can even start programming. But yeah, I mean, we got a 3D printer so we can do some prototyping. We've got the main machine where we do, from the ground up on all of our frames and all of our slide work. And we've got a laser engraver now, which is letting us do some really detailed, engraving and playing around with different layered Cerakote. And it's interesting, all the options that we've been able to bring.
I think it's wild to see. Like, you would expect, hey man, unless it's like super profitable and rigid and cookie cutter, we're not going to fire that equipment up for any purpose. And there was definitely like a free throwing kind of like creative vibe going on where, like, actually watching you do that, I'm thinking there's a lot of investment and time in this guy playing tattoo artists back here. Like, not every operation would let you do something like that.
Yeah, and that's part of what I love about it is, when we get a request, it's very rarely like, is this what we got to do? It's usually, it's a fun challenge. We get something that we've never done before, and it's more just, okay, how can we do this? Let's figure this out and really dial it in so that when someone wants it next time, it's already done. We've got it good, and that's one more option we can add.
I like it. Ryder Wood would like to ask Sante about his favorite camping guns. I imagine there's a fucking story here.
Oh, so I had a thank you, Ryder. But I had a survival trip I did with a couple of my friends where we didn't bring any food. Well, one of the guys did. And I got brand new boots, and they tore the crap out of my ankles and the heels of my feet. They were just awful. And so shoes were gone. I overheat very easily, so I wasn't wearing a shirt, and I was running around in this like black poncho with a Desert Eagle and a cowboy hat, and that became very much a thing. Me dual wielding Desert Eagles and running around some mountain up in New Hampshire with them. So I used to, because of like the shape of my body, I can conceal carry them pretty easily. They just fit really well. And to kind of relate to another story, there was one time where a Ryder actually he used to work at the gun shop with me, and he was telling somebody about one of the guns I used to carry, and the customer was like, "Oh, there's no way this kid can do the blah blah," because I kind of have like a slimmer athletic build, and he looks over at me. He's like, "Oh, you're carrying them now, aren't you?" And I just lift up my shirt, and I got the Desert Eagles akimbo on my back just for shits and giggles, and the guy's jaw dropped to the floor. So yeah, carrying 44 Magnum Desert Eagles, long story long, is what I like to bring on camping trips.
Seems totally reasonable in case there are murderous New Hampshire squirrels afoot.
Squirrels, bears, skinwalkers, whatever.
Fucking skinwalkers. Yo, all right, we're gonna not go on the skinwalker rabbit hole right now, but I have questions. Anyway, let's be adults and like talk about guns. Fucking guns. Red coat with a rifle, from a gunsmith perspective, have they played around with any of the magnet delay buffer setups on a regular firearm that some people have run in 3D printed firearms?
I have not
any
personally.
idea what the fuck he's talking about, because Lord knows I don't.
Vaguely, but it's not something I have any firsthand experience with.
Yeah, like I'm familiar with the concept. I think it was maybe PSR that was messing around with that where I saw it, but yeah, we mostly, at least at the shop, just kind of stick to the double stack 1911s. So not playing with that much.
Speaking of double stack 1911s, pretty stupid we can't call them 2011s. That's just dumb. Nobody likes that. Anyway, let's talk about the product line for a little bit. Like, in terms of the guns, started with the single stack, and then it kind of progressed into these double stack guns. What's both of your favorite like configuration in terms of what's going out of that shop all the time? What do you guys both really like? Go for it, dudes.
Anything that's really V-ported in like a heavier caliber I really enjoy, just because it's such a drastic change between that and like a normal configuration. I've shot like the 10 mils and the 45s, and it is crazy the difference. I've shot ported guns, like working in the gun shop. You have, the range, the gambit really to shoot anything we wanted. So I have a lot of experience with a lot of different handguns, and most of them were chunk ported at the time because it was quite a few years ago. And even our chunk port in comparison to the V port, it's like a night and day difference. I'm more of a 10 mil guy, even though it's kind of a ridiculous caliber and it can be really finicky. It's just fun. And throwing that in like a long slide, make a little bit heavier of a handgun, go full steel frame, full dust cover, and now our newer our aluminum grips, it feels so nice just putting lead down range.
I like that. I was about ready to be like, hey, Greg, I would very much like to kill a deer with one of your guns next year. Like, super very much. So we might have to 10 mil that shit up. What about you, Ari?
Yeah, so if you're looking for like a practical carry gun, I like to land kind of in that 4 1/4, 4.6 range, compact grip, full dust cover, aluminum or steel if you're going 9mm. But I'm kind of with Sante on that. Like I like the 6-inch 10mm V12 ported. Yeah. Just it's something entirely different, Like I shot Glocks for the longest time, and it's going from a Glock 19 to a ported 10mm where the recoil almost feels less than a stock Glock is pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm gonna have to spin one of these reloading presses up for 10 mil and like, hey Greg, I also have 20,000 rounds of 10 mil loaded. Just saying.
I'll take a case or two.
Bro,
having the ammo is half the reason to get the gun.
Yeah, we that like super side note, right? But like those guns that you guys saw of mine, there's a lot of tight group gone through them motherfuckers. Like those guns got shot heavy on a diet of reloads from right over here. So like no ammo sponsors, no nothing else. Like Greg gave us guns and we gave those guns ammo. So I wonder what a good 10 mil load would be. That'd be an interesting little spin up, but I'll bet it would run pretty good, especially V12 ported. Big ass dot. I might have to go. I'd have to go flashlight though, just cause it's for bears.
Yeah, we've had a couple of them. We had a few people that ordered either 5 or 6-inch 10mm from us because they were going up into Alaska and they were in bear territory. So yeah, there's a couple of people that are out there using our guns for serious defense.
The last thing I want to do is show a bear hey bear, you want to see my gun? My gun. Look how nice this gun is. I'm going to murder you. So,
well, we try to span that gap where you could take a bear out with it, but you could also show it off at a barbecue,
Barbecue guns. I'm supposed to be like the serious trainer guy who's supposed to say something like, guns are only weapons of defense, brother. You should not be using them for such silly, like I should do that voice, right? I got to admit, I kind of, what the hell Clayton showed me his like gunsmithing school project where he had this like 42-inch, 357 revolver or something. Like he had this revolver, it was like this long. Bringing in all his like play projects. What's some of the like sillier shit that you guys have done in there that actually shoots, even if it's not 2011 or 1911? Like, I have a feeling like we're gonna get people like Greg's gonna find out that the shop gets turned on at midnight and like the children come into play.
I do bug Ari with a ridiculous amount of stupid projects that I want to do, and I'm hoping eventually we get to do stuff outside the 1911 wheelhouse. But our machine takes up a lot of that time. I'd like to be able to mess around with things. I do a lot of fun colors though. Actually, Blake just did one. It was last week or the week before where somebody wanted a patina look, like the rusted car look on their handgun grip, and he did a really good job. It came out really nicely, and just something cool and different. like as far as the Cerakote side, I like messing with funky colors. Like, and when somebody's like, "Oh, I'm not really sure what I want, just make it look good," and that's probably when I have the most fun because then I'm using stuff that I don't normally get to use as long as it's something that's reasonable, or like a cool camo pattern. Like I did an OD green for a guy, and pulled a bunch of weird colors out, and I thought it was really fun.
That's pretty cool. I was amazed at the Cerakote capabilities in that play. Like I expected like a small paint booth or whatever, like not too much craziness going on. You guys got an oven big enough for me to get in and like get
Yeah.
warmed up,
It does help on those cold winter nights.
which I custom molded my holster in while y'all weren't looking.
Yeah, on my end, giving me a laser engraver was a dangerous thing to do because you can really just engrave anything. Like my everyday carry gun has like 5 different memes engraved on it. It's just I'll cut holes in it just to see if it'll work, and yeah, it's fun. I got one on the bottom of my Glock that is a goose holding a baseball bat. It says, "Mess with the honk, get the bonk." It's just goofy stuff like that.
Someday Ari's gonna shoot a motherfucker, and he's gonna be in a courtroom. Judge is gonna be reading back. State's evidence 528-3, and I quote, "Mess with the honk, get the bonk." Can you explain this, sir?
You'll be that'll be right after I explain why there's the ATF guy creeping over the brick wall on the bottom of my flashlight.
Nice. No dogs allowed. It's all right though. Speaking of the ATF, they're getting abolished like 2 weeks from now, right? Right.
Fingers crossed.
I hope.
Yeah.
What do you guys think sets like your capabilities apart, like as compared to some of these other guns that are getting in people's hands? What's different about a COSAINT gun besides you goofballs? But like, what sets y'all apart? What are things that you're proud of that are going into the product?
Everything we do, save for like the heavy machining that Ari does, everything's hand fit and made. Like we fit our barrels by hand, we fit our slides and frames by hand, our grips, our triggers. So there's a lot of time and care that goes into it versus a gun that's just, off the conveyor belt, so to speak. So we really get to fine tune what we do at COSAINT, which again is something I really appreciate because I've heard horror stories about guys who just come out of gunsmithing school and they're just putting safeties in guns, or they're putting, like sears in guns, and like that's all they do. They're like, connecting the dots, so to speak. And being able for me to take a gun like from the machine, fit everything, functions test, shoot it, do a finish work to make sure it's blended and polished properly, clean up any loose ends, and then Cerakote it, bring it back, do all the final stuff, and then also send it. It's I don't know, just being able to control that. I feel like we have a much higher quality that comes out. Granted, things will slip through the cracks every once in a while, especially with the smaller crew, but I feel like now we've gotten to a really good rhythm with getting everyone up to speed, like Clayton being new, falling in line, and everyone kind of fitting their role and filling it out really well. I feel like it's something that I can really take pride in.
You should, man. You guys put out some really, really useful tools. I mean, I've been on your guns now for pushing 2 years. I'm on month 22 or whatever, 21, something like that on the first one. So there's no question. There's quality there. It's visible. It shows up in the shooting. Definitely, I don't know about stuff slipped through the cracks or just I break shit because I'm Mongo. Like probably a little bit of that, right? But like, I think if you're going to buy a gun like this, you should expect that it's kind of like buying a Porsche and not expecting some tire wear. Like,
there's definitely a break-in period, and I find a lot of people don't know how to shoot 1911s because kind of like with other guns, you can limp wrist it, and so you have a hard time for it to go in battery and feeding properly. Sometimes you'll get mags that are bad depending on what company you're getting from, or sometimes they actually have to be fit. Even the companies that have a really good reputation, like MBX, sometimes will get mags that are just bum mags, and that's all there is to it. So there's a little bit of trial and error, and I think a lot of people think that they can just pick up and go and be, drilling headshots from 30 yards away like it's an action movie or something. But you got to train with your platform.
Yeah, and
So
I
what do
think
you?
especially with the double stack 1911 platform, it's the race car. Like those things are for the longest time were designed to operate on the bleeding edge of reliability. And as they've kind of come more into the mainstream, there's been more of a focus on making sure that they run 100% all the time. These aren't just competition guns. These are guns that you can actually use in an everyday carry kind of way. But yeah, I think us just being a smaller shop and having that kind of tight knit group, there's a constant back and forth between, the very beginning where I've got a block of steel that I'm turning into a gun, all the way to final inspection. There's always that back and forth of, hey, can this happen so that it's a little bit easier on our end, or vice versa, and just making sure that everything gets done kind of in that same way where there are companies that they're like, it's one gun, one gunsmith kind of thing. We're a small enough company where everybody's got their hands on it, but we're all working as a very tight team.
Yeah, my perspective on that was very much like it seems like y'all were each working on a gun, right? Like, and then it seemed like specifically the two of you with your specialties, one being in the paint booth and the other one being on the machine, were sort of working on a gun and also all the guns at the same time. Would that be a fair way to phrase that?
Absolutely, especially in the Cerakote side of things. We'll tend to try to build things and group them together, and then either me or Blake does a lot of Cerakoting as well, but he's kind of taken a step back to focus more on gunsmithing. But we'll kind of pull them together. Say we got a bunch of black guns or like camo patterns or Riptile or whatever. Try to do them all at once and get them over there, depending on like our orders. That way we can group stuff in batches. But I mean, in the paint booth, I was doing like 7 guns the other day, just back and forth between throwing them in and out of the oven and throwing colors on them. And oh, this one's black here, and this one's got like black in the camo pattern. So trying to marry that stuff up. And the good thing about having such a small, tight knit group too is I'll be able to go over and be like, hey, can you help me with this? Or like, I need you to, can you take care of this for me? Because this didn't get done, or like, we need to fix this. And it can just get finished without me really having to worry about it. Cause I can trust like Blake, for instance, to do it. And then he'll bring it back to me and just keep on rolling. So it helps keep things really smooth on both ends, I think.
It's neat to see. I think I expected a conveyor belt sort of set. I mean, when you think manufacturing, you think Henry Ford, right? Like that's what you. For those of us who don't
robot arms and
yeah, like definitely some Oompa Loompas up in that bitch,
100%
for sure. And then like when I got there, it had much more of this vibe of like, here's a tray of stuff that's eventually going to turn into a gun. And these fellas are going to make that happen. And there was not like a conveyor belt vibe to it. The other thing that was interesting was something I picked up on was y'all knew whose guns you were working on to a degree.
Yep.
And I don't know who the player, I don't know who your customers are really or whoever, but y'all were like, yo, this is Kent's gun, let's just say, right? Like, oh, hey, you guys working on that blah, blah, blah for blah, blah, blah. And every dude in there had an investment in what that was.
It does kind of feel like we have a much closer relationship with our customers in that sense.
Yeah. All right. I don't think it feels that way. That's obvious from the outside. That really floored me. I wrote that down pretty early.
Yeah, there's a back and forth with a lot of our customers, just making sure that they're getting exactly what they want. I mean, there's a couple of our customers that, I'm back and forth texting with them as I'm doing the design work in the CAD software. making little adjustments, just kind of making sure that, when you order a gun from us, they're not cheap. But when you get it, it's exactly what you want.
It was clear that was kind of part of the gig. The other thing that was clear was that Greg's literally talking to every one of these customers.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Probably too much.
Yeah. Well,
we do get people who call a lot and want to do a lot of changes, which is, from my end, it's kind of frustrating because sometimes we'll have to recoat something. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure the customers get what they want. And sometimes you don't know what you want until you're really looking at it. You're like, well, can we change this? And it happens all the time, but I'm happy to do it.
I also just thought in terms of like watching the process. So just from a industry perspective, you watch and you go, okay, so this is a $3,800 gun or a $3,600 gun, right? And a dude will say, I would never pay that for a pistol, and I don't understand the margin and why this company charges so much. Like, you hear that kind of stuff.
That was me.
Heard
100%.
I get it.
Working in the gun shop, I'll be completely honest. I used to hate 1911s. I found one at a gun show that just like melded with my hand. It was a cheap Rock Island Armory, like ATI, like just felt really nice, whole grip, like nothing special, like $350 gun. And then I took it apart and worked on it just to see what I could do, and that was really what built my love for them. And then working at the gun shop, because I mean, even Cerakote stuff, used to look at stuff that like tiger stripes and things, and be like, why are they charging like 300, 400, 500 extra bucks for a freaking coat? Like, but now, yeah, I get it. It takes me like all morning to do some guns, and it's a process of just, coating and oven and take it out and cool and do again. And sometimes you mess up or you got to change something. It's a lot of just man hours into one gun that I really appreciate now.
If you guys ever, this might be more of a Greg question, but I wonder how many man hours, like start to finish, like my man calls COSAINT, gets Greg, starts talking guns, till he gets gun and is happy and doesn't call again until he buys another one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck? Like, that's got to be an astronomical amount of time.
It's shorter than you would think, because I feel like we have a very quick turnaround depending on like our season and what we have going on.
I mean, man hours.
Man hour. Yeah. It can be a lot, especially when we get to the point where, like I was saying with like 10 mil, sometimes we get guns that are just finicky, and it's something we've built 1,000 times before, and for some reason, maybe a barrel's out of spec or like the slide's just not fitting right, and like having to almost like puzzle troubleshoot. It can take a lot, but even just basic stuff, like it's a good solid stretch to put into a gun. I mean, even just wait times alone, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
The first time we do something with a gun, like if it's a new serration pattern or a new porting option that we're going through or somebody's requested, I mean, even just from the programming side, that sometimes can be, 4 or 5 hours of really working on that and then proofing out the program, making sure everything runs right. So depending on, what is going into that gun and how new the features included on it are, it can get pretty high in the man hours. I mean, our steel frames just in machining time are close to 7 or 8 hours just in the frame.
And we got finish work on some of those that take like 3 hours just to get like some of the tool marks out of it. And not even like the, polishing the sides, but like going in with a file and making sure everything's just squared up properly. And like the other day, or this is about a couple weeks ago now, but we had a guy who wanted like a cell shaded style paint job. It's like a comic book style with like heavy black lines and like light lines and things on it. And it took days to figure out how to do that well and to get it look right, but then also coat it so it stays. That was a process.
Yeah, that was just something we'd never done before.
So then here you are, right? You're Greg and you're selling this service. Hey, I'll charge you $4,000 for this comic book gun, right? Next thing you know, I got my dudes in there and they're, Sante, how we coming on that fucking comic book gun? And you're like, well, boss, this is fucking hard.
Oh, I threw it across the shop 3 hours ago, so.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to need repainted, as it turns out. No, I can see that. I guess.
There's definitely a little bit of that where we will undersell things from time to time where, like, maybe we're not getting the money out of it that the man hours might dictate, but it's all part of the journey, you know?
I guess my point in like kind of emphasizing this is really a lot, guys. A lot goes into this stuff. If you listen to these companies and you listen to them talk about what they do, nothing's easy. I'll tell you what I did not see. I did not see these dudes like Glock assemble a gun and then move it on to the, any asshole can build a Glock. No offense. Like I build them in the basement every year out of like spare scraps and shit, and they run fine. I didn't see that. I didn't see like that done. Like that's not what I saw.
Sometimes I do wish it was like that because it would just make things simpler, but it's not nearly as fun. But understanding how it works too, and being able to put it together, and when something doesn't go together right, or it's a little bit different from what we normally do, and but then being able to go back and see like what mechanism is causing the issue, it's yeah, it can be overwhelming at times for sure. But that, and like we kind of have like a gaggle of gunsmiths, so it's nice to be able to like just troubleshoot off of people. And sometimes you're just looking at it too closely and you can't figure it out, so you hand it off to Clayton or Blake, or they come over and like, I've been having this issue. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what that is because I just dealt with that a few days ago. So that's another reason why it's really cool to be with these guys in the shop and being able to know and trust their expertise.
Yeah, and on the machining end of things, like some unnamed companies that sell, similar guns for much less, you can machine these things so that they just slap together and they'll run, but you're not getting that level of quality out of them that you get from oversizing the parts and then having them hand fit by a gunsmith, assembled with care, as opposed to just kind of assembly line, make sure the tolerances are so sloppy enough that they can just go together kind of thing.
Yeah, we're not building AKs.
It'd be an interesting product offering. Maybe you should.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. Do something a little different.
I know Blake would be happy about it.
I kind of like, I've been resisting this whole time sending my Ruger Match Champion 10mm down and having you guys porting that thing. Because I shoot it in IDPA matches in 40.
Oh, we can make it happen, man. You can we'll do a little back and forth. Make sure whatever porting option we go with is gonna, like, I like to try to make sure that our ports line up with whatever serrations we're working with, just so that not only is it functional but it looks good. But yeah, we can make it happen. I'll put holes in anything.
I'm just gonna. Next time I come down, I'm gonna bring a truckload of guns that I've in some way fucked up. Like,
that's when we pull out the Oompa Loompas.
Yeah. All of a sudden the cage opens that nobody saw in the back. It's like a little line of treats. So you brought it up there, Santi. So let's go over this a little bit. What's the most difficult piece part tolerance in the double stack 1911 gun? Like, what's the hardest thing to get fit right?
Maybe not the hardest, but I'd say something you have to take the most care in is the barrel, because something as simple as the link size, we have a range of 5 that we do with different lengths to it, can make a gun either shoot or not shoot. But I mean, polishing the feed ramp just right. Sometimes just with the way the frames are machined, we have to go in at a different angle. You got to make sure the hood is like smooth enough. It's not catching on anything. We get burrs sometimes, so you have to go back in and polish that out. And even after Cerakote's done, because we shoot it before we give it to Cerakote, and then we shoot it after, obviously do a full functions test. And sometimes just the Cerakote and the tolerances of the gun need to be broken in because it's just so tight that the bull end of the barrel is sticking out the frame, and it's like catching, so you can't even rack it well. So that's probably the biggest. The second biggest, I would have to say, was just the triggers, especially working with so many different guns from a lot of different companies. When people send us stuff and they like, oh, I want this trigger in this gun, something, either the trigger or the grip has to be fit. You have to make sure that you're not getting things like hammered follow, which you can get a lot and very easily depending on, like, again, tolerances and how tight things are against one another. And that's just, it's something we pay a lot of attention and care to, and probably take more time on that than anything else.
Nice. What about you, Ari? What's the thing? It's Wednesday at 3:00, and the wife is expecting you, or the girlfriend, or the Krieger bot, or whatever you're going home to, and you're like, God damn it, this thing won't. Like, what are you fighting with hard at the shop?
I would say some of the most challenging stuff is matching serrations and stuff that's already on other pistols. Like we had a Prodigy come through a couple of weeks ago where the request was to add 2 more serrations to the front on either side, and then add through windows to all of the serrations. So just making sure that everything's lined up perfectly before I hit that go button. Letting the machine kind of creep in, double checking everything so that we're actually lined up and not punching holes in the wrong spot. That's some of the more challenging stuff. I mean, obviously when the serrations that people request are something brand new and something completely different from what we've done before, that can take a lot of time. But that is in some ways less challenging than trying to match up with factory features that we're going in behind and chasing.
It's kind of this thing in the gunsmithing world. I don't know if the listeners understand or not, but turns out you can't undrill a hole.
Yeah, that is one of the harder things in machining, is undrilling a hole. I remember, I remember 10, 15 years ago when somebody was talking to me and they were like, man, the day somebody figures out how to add metal to a part, they're going to make a lot of money. And like, now we live in a world where metal 3D printing is actually an option, and it's kind of interesting to see. But yeah, at least as far as what we do, once there's a hole, it's there.
My geeky 3D printing buddies are so tired of me because I'm like, make that. Like, what? I'm like, throw it in the replicator box, hit copy, then go over to the other thing, hit Control V, hit paste, and boot me up another one of them. And they're like, that's not. You don't.
If only.
Right.
We're not there yet. It is crazy though what you can do with that technology. It still blows my mind. I think back to like the 80s and 90s movies, and you watch like a sci-fi adventure and they just like fabricate stuff out of nothing. I'm like, we're almost there. We're almost there.
Then the aliens are going to show up in town.
Yeah.
Wait, maybe he. Yep.
As soon as we get it all figured out.
Right. Ari's the alien. That actually, Sante, that makes sense. Ari's the alien.
We didn't want to give away our secret sauce, but yes, Ari is the alien.
From planet like Plutonium, or what's the Joe Rogan planet that he's always talking about? The one that the Anunnaki are from?
I think it's just like Planet X or something.
Huh? No, you said it. Yeah, Nairobi.
Yeah.
That's apparently a planet like outside our solar system that flings by every however million years or something. I'm into all that type of stuff.
Oh, dude, I'm all the way in the rabbit hole, and I didn't.
Right? Are we going on a conspiracy tangent? Because
lizard people.
All right, real quick. So I had one more adult question, but let's do this.
Adult question.
What's your favorite conspiracy theory?
I'm a birds aren't real guy. They were all replaced in the mid '80s with surveillance drones. That's why they sit on the power lines so they can charge remotely. I think that's the most fun one.
Wait a minute, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
As for me, I love me some good old John Teeter, some time travel. You familiar with that one?
You just got the golden retriever face on me.
So I'll give you in the late 90s, I think in 99, there was a guy who went on some internet forums back in the early Y2K days, posting about time travel and that he was going back in time searching for a certain computer that he could use to fix a problem in his current timeline because they got messed up by Y2K. There was World War III, a bunch of other stuff. Won't get into, but a lot of the things he had said that had happened on his alternate timeline actually either came true or you found out like 15 years later was something being worked on. Like CERN, for instance, they were working on like smashing, like creating black holes essentially. And that's kind of how his time travel device worked. He described it like he had a car, but he also had the suitcase that contained like this black hole that he would use to kind of slip in between. Whole big thing. But yeah, super cool, super fun. There's so much to it, and the more you like go down that rabbit hole, some of the stuff he talked about, he had some really good insider knowledge. He came back a couple times and talked about different things, and yeah, it was just super fascinating. So if you ever want to go down a rabbit hole that'll take you, weeks, do that.
I literally just Googled it. Thanks for that.
Right, there goes the next like week of my afternoons.
Anybody in the audience who loves that type of stuff, like, oh man, it's good. I've been following that since like when I was a wee little Santi Jr. and I eat it all up.
Are you a junior?
No.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I do have a great grandfather that shared my name, or well, I share his name, I guess technically.
So The Simpsons predicted a lot of shit. That's what I know about people like timelines.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of insider knowledge that guy has, but there's too many coincidences for that to not be something, right?
I figured him and Mr. Teeter must have been hanging out. I'm gonna close that loophole. I'm gonna figure that out. All right, adult question time. Last one. So, in terms of shooting, like, what are you guys' aspirations in terms of actually running guns? Because I also found it interesting that it seems like everybody in that place is actually into shooting to a certain degrees.
That certainly helps when your passion is what you do.
We're all gun guys.
I didn't grow up with guns, so I had some catching up to do. But working in the gun shop, like I said, we got to shoot, full auto G36 and P90 and like various types of machine guns that a lot of people don't get to touch, and super obscure things. I just like trying different stuff. As far as like working in this gun shop, like I want to see just more innovation. Ari and I are I've been coming up with ideas that I've been throwing at Ari and just seeing what sticks, hoping someday we get to just, make some really weird cuts into a slide and cool designs. That passion, I think, is what really drives me. It's fun. It's a fun job, and I get to go to work and deal with something that I really enjoy, and I think it's just awesome.
Yeah, I have kind of the hobby background of doing a lot of USPSA, 2-gun, 3-gun, run and gun kind of things. So I think it's interesting to work with some of these competition guys and then see like the videos on all the Facebook pages and the forums of people out there actually running our guns in matches, and people that are way better shooters than I will ever be, just because I don't have the money to run that many rounds in a year. But it's cool to see. Like I shoot a couple of guys.
Let's get you shooting like a motherfucker. We'll get you on a dry fire plan. You don't have to shoot that much.
No, and I should dry fire more than I do. We've got kind of a local, very relaxed USPSA kind of chapter where we abide by the rules, but it's not an official match or anything. But I try to get out and do that every other week or so. But it's a good time, and getting out there, and there's 3 or 4 people that I shoot with on a pretty regular basis that are running COSAINTs, and it's neat to see.
It is every really time they satisfying.
Every time they're running a match, I'm like, everything's gotta go smooth. Everything's gotta go smooth.
If you've actually shot in competition or taught classes in front of the general public with a gun, let me remind you, it doesn't always go smoothly, and that ain't got a fucking thing to do with the gun you're shooting. It's usually a software problem.
Yeah.
Like, for sure.
I used
Well,
to do
as soon
quite
as that timer goes off, every plan you've ever had goes out the window. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you know, you could dry fire all day, you could put thousands of rounds downrange per year, and then as soon as that timer goes off, you're like, which way goes that way? Like, it's
when you're under pressure like that, it's you go monkey brain very quickly. Just working at the plant, I saw that a lot. I used to teach out of the gun shop, and then we'd go down to the range and shoot stuff, and people would be like, "Oh," and be like loading the gun and like pointing it back towards me. I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." But I think that's like what you were saying before. It's we got a few guys who give us a lot of feedback, and they shoot like any type of competition, you know, all the types. And it's cool being like, I built that gun. Like, I'm glad you like it, and I'm very glad it runs the way you want it to.
So I'm going to leave you guys with this. My company touches a pile of students, right? Like we teach a lot. We teach private lessons. We teach law enforcement. We teach mill. We teach general civilian, concealed carry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Your tools are actually making a difference in the lives of our students, whether you track on that, realize that, understand it or not. Me picking up your brand and putting that to work in front of my clientele is a thing that like means more to me than maybe you might realize. Because this shit is about to teach something that matters like a lot. And in that way, you guys are having an impact that I like to remind people in what I would call like the back of the house of the gun industry. You know, I would be the front of the house, right? I'm going to tell you right now, every little fucking thing you guys do matters immensely. And I want to actually take the opportunity to thank you for that because it does mean something.
Well, thank you. And that's incredible to hear because especially in, you know, the niche market that we're in where we're moving from that very niche, like competition minded kind of thing into the more mainstream. Yeah, it's cool to know that the products are actually out there making a difference.
Yeah, thank you. That makes me really happy to hear. I'm glad I'm doing something right.
Well, you're doing all kinds of shit right, but in this environment, right? Like it's not a bowling ball or a golf club all the time. Like it is, and that's totally fine, and that's fucking cool and whatever. But like, it also matters. So
it is good to like, I don't know. It helps me sleep at night thinking that somebody's, you know, somebody somewhere has one of the guns that I made tucked under their pillow for a bad day, and you know, knowing that it'll serve them in that purpose.
yeah, bro, I carried your gun today. That single stack now, like I told Greg I was going to teach on that single stack now that I have it. If I'm teaching on it, that means I have to carry on it, get familiar with it, shoot it in matches, do this whole. So, you know, that means that my teaching tool becomes a primary defensive tool for me, which, like, it's got to work.
Absolutely.
And they do. All right, dudes. What else you got for me? You guys got any, like, last words or anything you want to hit me with? Ari's concert starts in T-minus 4 minutes and counting, so we have to get him to the show.
Yeah, it's in there, but yeah, no, I'm happy to be here.
What do you guys got for me? Anything you want to end with, or questions, or
oh man, my head's swimming out. But yeah, just feedback. Like anybody who shot our guns, like I want to know when it works. I want to know when it doesn't work. I want to know things you like or dislike, or things you would like to see done or changed. Like kind of open when it really comes to that. So I would like to see a lot of innovation, and I like to be able to create that. So just so much feedback. I'll take it all.
You guys are very receptive to feedback. Even, hey, I don't understand this, or I don't know why this is this way. I try not to, me personally, I try not to say, hey, I don't think this is right, because what the fuck do I know, right? Like I'm not entirely certain how this works. But when I was in there being like, I'm not sure I like the way that feels, like you guys immediately listened.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what it's all about.
We love that customer feedback and that customer interaction, just because there isn't a whole lot of people in the market now that are doing truly custom stuff. I mean, you know, you can get guns from all these small builders that are something incredibly unique, but you didn't get a whole lot of input into it. And I think there's something really cool about having that back and forth and making sure that what you have in your head is eventually what you have in your hand.
That's really, really, really neat. Well, feedback. I think we can definitely do some more feedback. I've told Greg a lot of stuff. I'd like to keep up comms with you guys as well.
Absolutely.
Because like I hit him back with different things and whatever via text, and for an old guy, his thumbs work pretty good. He's actually a pretty decent texter.
Yeah, he ain't bad.
Nah, he ain't bad at all.
He's on top of it for sure. When you call COSAINT, you talk to Greg. Yeah,
and when you build your gun, you build it with him, which is, I'm sure he talked about it, but you go through the build sheet step by step, and it's Build-A-Bear but guns.
That's the second T-shirt. Okay, so I've got two COSAINT T-shirts coming. So you guys will appreciate the pleasure, the joke in this. So my buddy Tim Herron and I are teaching a class together, and he's a Nighthawk sponsored shooter, right? So everybody was like, "Oh, let's compare the COSAINT to the Nighthawk or whatever," and everybody was like trying to be silly and trying to crack on me or whatever. I was like, "Bitch, don't be hating on my day pigeon." So there's going to be a COSAINT day pigeon T-shirt, 100%.
Yep.
And now there's going to be a COSAINT fucking Build-A-Bear but for guns. Like
bear with like a Rambo bandana, flag T-shirt.
Desert Eagles for no reason.
Of course. Need at least two.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. Build-A-Bear but for guns. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna read you all out for now. This will not be the last time you folks hear from COSAINT. We got to do Blake and Clayton yet, and then we got to do like a wrap up episode with Greg. And we agreed to really go deep here, so we're gonna do at least another episode, if not two more. Kind of round out a bunch of content for you folks to really have an understanding of like what's going on at this company and what's going on with the guns. If you're interested, hit them up on their website, COSAINTARMS.com. And you can find all their information and all that stuff there. If you use code GMD15, they will charge you 15% more than they were going to originally. So there's that
goes directly into my pockets.
Right. Because it gets split between the staff. So there's a coupon code there.
That's our ammo budget.
Ephemeral tip jar.
I keep waiting for some dude to actually try to use one of my fake coupon codes I tell people. So I do that joke for every company, and I'm like waiting for somebody to call me and be like, "Bro, what the fuck?
I got 100% off."
This isn't doing anything.
Right. This not always just not doing anything, but the company called me and told me to fuck myself. I don't understand.
Which we will do for free.
Right. If you guys are looking for training, you know where to find me, www.greenmountaindefense.com/training. Check out all the stuff on the Sling'N Led podcast socials. Check out all the stuff on the Green Mountain Defense socials. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that kind of good craziness. This will be on the Spreaker, Stitcher, and Apple forever and ever and ever. If you're going to give us a review or interact with us, please do it there because YouTube hates us. That's all we got for tonight. Until we see each other again, enjoy yourselves. God bless. Get out and train. Good night, guys.
Adios.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.